Hi, everyone, and welcome to AB Conversations, where we will help you CFP your way out of it. A podcast where you get into the minds of a couple certified financial planners on how we think and feel about everyday financial planning questions and what should really matter most to you. A healthier financial life starts now. So this time of year, I would say, following up on Thanksgiving, Giving Tuesday, just the holiday season in general, it's definitely a time of year where charitable giving and generosity, it's front of mind, not just for ourselves and what we try to do here and what we practice here, things that we value, but certainly with a lot of our clients. So I think we want to kind of put out there into the world today, without having to do this in a big technical financial way,
Mm-hmm.
just how modeling generosity is such an important thing for a lot of our clients. If we say that they are to kind of align money to their purpose in life, we often hear, spending that with people that care about causes they care about. And that's really important to them. So let's just keep it light today, Adam. Talk a little bit about just generosity this time of year and how that as a theme can be passed down generation to generation.
Yeah. So as you said, this is less about the technical side, right? The estate planning side of things or the legacy planning side of things, or, do I use a trust or all of these different ways of going about it? This is more of the nitty gritty details of just on the ground floor, right? How do people live? How do they give? And we want to and invite others into that process, right? We're kind of viewing this through the lens of a lot of the clients that we work with are parents and or grandparents, and just being able to be the model for that next generation, right? The lead by example. So just being able to, for those kids and grandkids, hopefully learning more by seeing what our clients, what we are doing more than do as I say, not as I do, right? That's a big one. So, whether it's giving up time or talent, resources, or something like that, right? That next generation, I think it's hard, especially in today's day and age. It feels difficult to just build that habit from nothing, right? So, a lot of the people that we work with are charitably inclined. So, that's a very easy bar to clear. And maybe we'll get into some of these examples. It doesn't have to be the big,
Yeah.
grand, we're going to donate a wing of a hospital, right? I'm trying to go as grand as I could think in my head, but do it more granularly. And I don't want to spoil maybe some of the stories that you have to share, but I think just being able to maybe give some of those really easy examples of here's what we've heard, or maybe some personal examples that we can share of just clearing that initial hurdle and getting kids and grandkids kind of involved in the process and just get their wheels turning maybe a little bit that isn't as natural.
Yeah, and when we say it's kind of the time of the year to do that, exercises in gratitude. I mean, maybe that's a little bit harder for a younger generation, but the concept of Giving Tuesday, if we're just talking about financial, we were super honored that clients participated with us this year. I think we got maybe close to 50 different
Hmm.
organizations that our clients cared about. Include your children, grandchildren in that next year.
Yeah.
Let them know that's something we're doing as a thank you and our way of giving back. But I think we see it a lot this time of year, whether it's an angel tree project, whether they're toys for tot. There's so many big organizations that do that. I don't think it's uncommon, Salvation Army, to bring your kids or grandkids into something like that.
Hmm. Yeah. So to that end, I think just involving them in some of that decision making process or even just asking the questions, right? And just in prep for this, I feel like I need to go home and do some of this with my own children, right? Just what causes matter to them? What do they even know about, giving back or being charitable? Is that just money to them? Is that donating time to them? Like, just again, for that. And I guess we're looking through the lens of, for our clientele, the retiree group. I think it's more on
Yeah.
the grandchildren side of things, right? Getting them kind of ingrained in the charitable thought process. But even something very small can just start that thought process.
Well, and I've heard that to put some cash in an envelope and give it to the grandchild and say, here's the challenge, right? If you've ever given a gift in your life, maybe you've been super excited because you know what that gift is, and giving it to a sibling, a cousin, you're just really excited for them to receive it because you know they're going to love it. Like that is at its root, like the joy that should be giving, knowing that you're doing something great for somebody else. So put some cash in an envelope. And that's where, to your
Mhm.
point, it's not the wing of a hospital. It's not thousands of dollars out of an IRA. It's
Mhm.
25, it's 50 bucks in an envelope, and challenge that child. Think about, where are your opportunities in the next couple weeks to do something impactful, either for an organization or maybe even better, open your eyes to what's happening around you at school, right? I love the concept of the red car theory that
Mm,
if I said to Adam, how many red cars did you pass on your way driving into, 172 West Main today? You probably don't know, but if I said
right.
I'd give you money to tell me how many you saw
Yeah.
tomorrow, you'd be paying attention to it. So
Yeah.
it may be a way to not only encourage that act of giving to a grandchild, but say, hey, now that you have this 50 bucks and you're tasked with giving it away before the end of the year, who around you might that serve? The kid whose shoes are all, I'm using
Yeah.
very generic examples here, right? The kid that needs a new pair of shoes. What
Mhm.
what are those things that you could do? The kid that doesn't have a lot in the lunchbox. Is there something, bring that story to mom, to dad, to a grandparent, and let's figure out how we can take this gift and model just being generous, doing the right thing.
Yeah, and even just thinking about, like, the different ways of doing it, I've heard clients share before, and again, I think it is through the lens of helping with grandchildren, it's helping them save. Different from this conversation, but I think the thought process is the same, like, we wanna instill the good habits, right? The good financial habits, and if that is if somebody has a time job in high school, it's making sure you're setting aside a certain amount of those dollars, but
Yeah.
matching that. Treat your grandchild as if, like, that's their 401k. They're not getting a match on just what they're accumulating in the bank, but my incentive as the mentor in this situation is, "Hey, if you're gonna save $500, whatever you save, I'm going to match that," and just, again,
Yeah.
show the power of that, but I think that same idea can filter here too, right? I don't know if it needs to be a specific number, but just the idea of putting some of that responsibility on the child or the grandchild to do some research, find causes that matter to you, come up with what maybe it is donating their own money, but then coming behind that with but we will match that or we'll do twice that or whatever that is, just to get that mechanism kind of moving and just putting the child in that spot to just think about it probably differently than they have before.
And I think what's so great about that, thinking about what you just said, here's what I would want to make sure is a huge takeaway. And I'm not summarizing the podcast. We're like 2 minutes in, but I think so many things around money we keep to ourselves, right? And we think that to talk about money sometimes is like not the right thing to do.
Yeah.
But especially with this idea of generosity, I can think of so many different clients that go, but that's just the right thing to do, so I'll do it. Make it known though that you're doing it. Like model that with your grandchildren. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be that you're doing this in secret, right?
Right.
I would highly encourage them to know, and not that you're doing it to, brag or anything of that nature. Look at the extra money we have to give away. No, it is to model that this is a very healthy behavior that actually, to your point, is instilling a very good habit, not only emotionally, but just socially, with your money as you age, as you earn your own money, to make sure that giving back is a part of that.
Well, and yeah, not only that, but I think it's the important part. Depending how old the child is in this instance, too, they may not have the impactful dollars, right, to say I'm going to donate to this charity. So just having like the seed money from the parent or grandparent to just allow them to even explore what's possible. I'm trying to think back to when I was a kid. Like I had jobs as a kid, but that was not like the first thing in my mind of, oh, how am I going to give this away? I was a normal child. I wanted things. I didn't have money. I wanted to accumulate things. But if there was somebody there kind of guiding me through that, then that it just again, I think it opens it up for the opportunity for the discussion, or at least again to just pass along some of that thought process, some of those values, some of those habits.
I think it's great relationship building too,
For
right?
sure.
I think what's going to be interesting to me, if my kids are given that opportunity, hey, here's an envelope, and by the end of the year, let's think about something that you would feel good about giving to. If it's not an individual situation, I'd be super curious. I mean, my Lucas, he's just out there. He's very conversational. What is he into? If you said, hey, what do you want this to serve? maybe it's going to be, animals. Maybe it's going to
Mm,
be, gosh, he's into like space programs right now. Who knows what he says? But when
hmm
you think about what matters most to our clients, again, we're to ask that question, like, how do we align our money to something that's going to feel good? Think about you being the source of being able to provide some excitement then, to those grandchildren.
Yeah. Yeah. So maybe to pivot a little bit, we have a specific client example in my head. This is to a much grander degree, but the family has a donor advised fund where I'll say the patriarch and the matriarch of this family passed away. It funded this donor advised fund. And now the siblings, the children, get together and are essentially they are required to now figure out where are we giving some of
Hmm.
these dollars every year, right? And it is so, and I don't know, I don't want to say it's a forced exercise, but there are rules and requirements around that. But the experience that he shared with us, it's just what they get out of that, the people, the clients here in this instance, they get out of that process is just so rewarding, right? And we know that. And maybe this goes back to my comment on, when I was a kid, it wasn't even in my brain that experience of feeling
Right.
because I didn't have the resources to just give away, but just getting that initial feeling, right? You kind of want to get them hooked on it's better to give than to receive. But even something as
Serotonin, dopamine,
yeah,
like it's a thing.
yes, I don't want to say something as simple as a donor advised fund because we know that, again, that's a much grander scale of giving, but just that thought exercise, it doesn't have to be that, right? The family can pool dollars together and say, we have X number of dollars. How do we want to disperse it? Where do we want to give it? And just open up that conversation to that charitable giving side of things. Yeah, the serotonin and the dopamine hits of doing something good.
Yeah, and I guess that's kind of what I meant on you're going to learn a lot about each other too, on what causes matter to each other and
Yeah.
how you want to go about helping. And even there, you think of a donor advised fund or charitable trust as these like big entities and big irrevocable decisions, but it doesn't have to
hmm
be that way. That donor advised fund, it can be a couple bucks. But
Yeah.
now I'm imagining, to your point, on a much smaller scale, you know, maybe this is pie in the sky, but my future family sitting around the Thanksgiving table and going, what are we thankful for this year? And how are we going to show that with money coming out of
Mm,
a joint pooled account that, we've thrown some dollars in to invest to model good behavior, but also model generosity.
yeah. And I think, ultimately, maybe the biggest thing that we would want to see kind of passed along, or at least the lesson, it's the why, right? From the parent or the grandparent or whoever in this instance. It's we're doing this, but it's the why behind why we're doing this that I think is maybe the most important piece of this
Yeah.
because that really does come down to the values, of a family and those habits that come along. But getting to the root of that why is so important. I'll share this little story. We had a client not that long ago, and I get goosebumps every time I think about it. But he shared with us not only did he document his 5 whys in life, right? Financially, here's what I would financially is part of it, but just these are I'm in retirement. Here's what is important to me and like these are my motivators in life. That blew me away. I love that so much to the point where not only did he just share that with us, which I feel like not many people on this planet have probably done that, but he went through that exercise with his kids and the grandkids. Again, just to kind of instill this is what's important to me. And again, I think just leading by that example hopefully sparks the thought in your child or your grandchild of, oh, I didn't even consider thinking about that, right? And just again, just starting the wheels turning and hopefully just bettering that next generation as well.
Well, and that's where some of the storytelling can rest in that, right? That to your point, when you're a kid, you really just don't have the perspective of these things. But now I'm imagining his grandkids really hearing the story of this is where we came from. This is what we came from. And it's in some ways, again, an exercise in gratitude. Like there's hard work that's gone into saving. There's hard work and sacrifice that's gone into the process of accumulating and now being able to give away. So here's what I feel we're responsible to the generations before us that,
Yeah.
kind of paved the way for us. And that's what I think makes it so touching because, yes, I realize there are dollar figures that will exchange hands because of that generosity. But I imagine those grandkids just now having a much clearer picture of, oh my gosh, yeah, this is why he is the way that he is, why they are the way that they are, in a beautiful and generous way.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's where it just ultimately boils down to that legacy is not always so much about the dollars, right? It is about the values, it is about the direction, it is about those habits, and hopefully just leaving the world a better place, as corny as that may sound coming out of my mouth. Ultimately, that's, I think, a lot of people, that's all we want to be able to do on this planet, right? Is just leave it better than we found it. And this is just a great way to continue to instill that in future generations without it feeling too heavy.
Yeah, like, I can probably end with that white envelope story that
Yeah.
I told you I would tell,
Mhm.
because it comes up this time of year too when we just think about the materialistic nature of like Christmas sometimes and gift giving, all that hustle and bustle. And this white envelope story, if people haven't heard it, it's about a gentleman. His name was Mike. He hated all that. Like he hated all the shopping. He hated the hustle and bustle. People are going to buy me ties that I'll never want to wear. Like that's what the kids do because it's on sale at Kohl's, whatever. I'm embellishing the story a little bit, but he was a wrestling coach for his kid. And they went into this wrestling match and they were playing against this other school that was probably just a poor church organization sponsored school.
Mm.
So here, his kids had all this wonderful equipment, fancy uniforms, and they just kicked the crap out of this other school and they had no equipment. And he just felt so bad about it. And his wife decided that year that she was going to settle this. And very quietly, instead of having him, bought ties or the kids doing those things, she went out and bought all this equipment for that school, donated it
Mm.
kind of anonymously in his name, and just wrote that down on a card and put it in the Christmas tree. So that Christmas morning, he was able to open that. Now, as the story goes, he got cancer and died 2 years later.
Mm.
And she was just, of course, emotionally wrecked by this to the point where, the kids were a little bit older and she just didn't do a good job putting up decorations that year,
Mm.
wasn't really celebrating the season. And sure enough, when she comes downstairs Christmas morning, there's 3 envelopes in the tree. Each one of the kids had done one of the same things to honor their dad. And you just think
Yeah.
about the power that kind of came from doing the right thing and being generous that time of year. That was clearly a very personal thing for their family, but just I think to share those stories and share how you can impact other people in a huge way is
Yeah.
something a lot of our clients tell us is important to them. So model it, do it. Let's find those little ways to do it. And again, it doesn't need to be with a charitable gift from your IRA that you call us and
Mhm.
tell us you want to do in November.
Mhm.
Put some money in a white envelope and see what your kids or grandkids do with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess the point is it's perfectly fine to start small, and in fact, it's probably better to start there and be able to build on that over time. It's a much easier pathway to instilling some of those values and those habits in the younger generation. Thank you for sharing that story. That was touching.
Deep breath. All right.
That's a tough one.
I say Merry Christmas, but Happy Holidays to everyone out there. I hope everyone got a little something out of a little bit of sharing here.
Yes. And a happy and healthy new year.
Can't believe it's here.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank
We'll
you.
do this. We'll do this again in 2026.
Okay.
See ya.
Bye.
Hey everyone, Adam and I really appreciate you tuning in. Please note that the opinions we voiced in this show are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be most appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, your accountant, and financial advisor or tax advisor prior to making any decisions or investing. Thanks for listening.